Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug. Streaming live on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure: all Bookmap Limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure: trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. That's a great place to post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @DougPless. Here are the key tenets to my approach for trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures, and certainly in the large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks and the equity index futures. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES Futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with ES Futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index, QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index, and the NQ Futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ Futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading, and the first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding the expected trading range and volatility for the day, as well as a directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset and the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions or comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. And hello, Hector. Welcome. Glad you're here. And hello, DSK. Welcome. Glad you're here as well. DSKYT asks, do you use market profile in trading? No, I do not. You just saw the key tenets for my approach to trading. It is entirely options based. So I don't use lagging indicators. I don't use market profile. My analysis and trading, again, is entirely options based. I believe options trades are key. Options trades, market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price for stock, and they're also forward looking. I'm looking at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market, and whether they're, and by looking at those levels, I can tell whether they are looking for, expecting, and positioning themselves for higher or lower prices. So again, I think options trades are more forward-looking than other forms of analysis. All right, here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, July 31st. First of all, I want to go over news items, economic data, events, and earnings reports. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today, if I have time. Of course, the FOMC announcement is at 2 p.m. All right, then I'll take a look at the live market, and I will get to the live market again at 2 p.m. no matter where I am in the presentation so far. Give me just a moment. I want to get a stream going on YouTube TV so I can watch CNBC. Kind of watches the news, scrolls along on the announcement. All right, so that's the agenda for today. All right, so let's take a look now. Let's start with news items. Of course, again, the big news item is the FOMC announcement and press conference that begins at 2 p.m. That's when the announcement comes out, 2:30 p.m. Press conference begins, and that will be the end of my presentation. All right, so this is the CME Fed Watch tool. And we did take a look at this on Monday. No change, really. Current target rate, 525 to 550. About a 98% chance that the Fed holds steady, and only about a 2% chance of a rate cut today. And it looks like no chance of a rate increase. Moving on to the September meeting. Again, current target rate, 525 to 550. Looks like there's about somewhere between an 89-90% chance of a 25 basis point rate cut and about a 10% chance of a 50 basis point rate cut for September. All right, so that is the big news item for today. And note that, yesterday evening, both AMD and Microsoft reported earnings. We'll take a look at both those stocks given time, and then Meta reports earnings after the close today. So given time, again, we will take a look at all of those stocks, see how options traders are positioning themselves. All right, let's move on to positional analysis now. I'm going to start with the SP 500. This is the ES Futures and Bookmap. And I'm going to take a look at before I take a closer look at this chart, take a look at a higher time frame. This is SPX. This is a one-day chart in Thinkorswim showing last year. Big rally last year. Correction began this year, April 1st. Rally resumed after the April put-dominated options expiration. Then moving on to the current, next really deep pullback, correction maybe. Correction began at the VIX expiration. That was 2 days before the July options expiration shown right here with the vertical red line. So let's pick that up. So again, correction April 1st, rally resumed Monday after the April options expiration, and then this current pullback, deeper pullback, maybe correction, began with the VIX expiration on July 17th. All right, let's take a look now at a 1 hour chart. So this is another Thinkorswim chart. This is a 1 hour chart, 30-day 1 hour chart. Here's this is where the current pullback began. That was the July 17th, Wednesday, July 17th, VIX expiration in the morning. SPX gap down, and then has found pretty solid support at the 5,400 level. and also resistance just below 5,500, right around 54.85 to 54.90. Note SPX did gap up above that level. So let's take a look at the levels on this chart, and then we'll take a closer look at the last few days of price action for SPX. First of all, the dashed purple lines, we'll take a look at the expected moves. The dashed purple lines are showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. That's based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. And so far, SPX is trading inside of that range. Then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move. That's also based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. I do post both of those levels in Discord the evening before every day in the Options-Doug chat channel and Bookmap Discord. All right, so SPX gapped up above the upper daily expected move, still trading up above that level. All right, so those are the expected moves. Let's take a look at the Spotgamma levels, the key daily levels. First of all, the absolute gamma strike, back down at 5,000. That's the strike with the largest absolute positive and negative gamma. And that can be expected to act, sorry, that's the strike with the largest absolute positive and negative gamma. And that level did move lower from yesterday. It had moved up to 5,500 yesterday, moved back down to 5,000. It was at 5,000 on Monday. All right, so 5,000 up to 5,500 yesterday, back down to 5,000 today. So that's the absolute gamma strike. The next level up is the put wall at 5,300. That's a strike with the largest net negative gamma. That can be expected to act as support. The next level up is the volatility trigger at 54.95. That is Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, like SPX is trading now, maybe not much longer, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. And note, at the beginning of the day, market makers' position on the gamma curve was negative. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. All right, so SPX still, it looks like, trading just above the volatility trigger. And that volatility trigger has been a key turning point for the last few days. And I did post something in Discord and X yesterday showing how the volatility trigger that was at 54.85 yesterday acted as resistance and set up that great short from 54.85 all the way down to 5,400. That's this short right here. Let's pick that up in just a moment in the 1 minute chart, and just to wrap up the levels, there's the call wall at 57.50. That's the strike with the largest net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. All right, shifts in levels. As I mentioned before, the absolute gamma strike shifted lower, and the volatility trigger shifted slightly higher from 85 to 95. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1 minute chart. This is yesterday. Resistance at that right around that current resistance level that it acted as resistance for several days, right around 54.85, 54.90. This was the 54.85. That was the volatility trigger yesterday. Price tested that level just after the open, moved all the way down to 5,400 for a great short. Then today, again, SPX gapped up, found support right at the 54.95 volatility trigger. Again, that did move up 10 points from yesterday. So SPX still trading above the volatility trigger as well as the upper daily expected move. All right, let's move on to Bookmap now. So in Bookmap, I have my own cloud notes, so I can show SPX levels. Here's that 54.95 volatility trigger acting as support early this morning. Good launching point for a long. I'm also showing SPY levels on this chart. Here's the SPY 549.0 gamma level. That did act as resistance earlier today. Now it looks like it may be acting as support. Note there's a difference in price between ES and SPX. Somewhere that offset, ES to SPX offset, is between 36 and 37 today. So I'm actually using 36.5. So I'm showing SPX 5500 at ES 5536.5. All right, so those are the levels in play for the S&P 500 today. 54.95 volatility trigger support. All right, shifts in levels again. The volatility trigger did shift 5 points higher, and the absolute gamma strike shifted 500 points lower. And the SPY call wall did shift higher. So SPY and SPX trading well below their call walls. All right, let's take a quick look at NASDAQ. This is the NQ Futures and Bookmap. And before I take a closer look at this chart, I do want to take a look at the underlying index charts. I'm going to start with QQQ. QQQ levels in play for today. QQQ, the volatility trigger, 465. Zero gamma level at 467. Around that level, acting as support earlier today. Then 470 is the absolute gamma strike. And around that level, acting as resistance. So price pretty quickly moved up to that level this morning, chopped up and down, traded lower, now maybe trying to make its way back up to the 470 absolute gamma strike. And that's a combo level just above it, 471.56. All right, so that is QQQ. Let's take a look at NDX. Zoom in just a bit. So today, just like QQQ, looks like the zero gamma level for NDX is just around the same location, acting as support earlier today, and then the volatility trigger at 19,375 acting as resistance. So NDX trading between the zero gamma level and the 375 volatility trigger. And those levels are shown on this chart. There's the 177 zero gamma level, 467 QQQ zero gamma level, just above that. Good entry points for long this morning. And then there's the 375 volatility trigger. All right, let me check for questions. AF, welcome, glad you're here. Asked to look at Google. I do have Google. If I have time, I'll take a look at that. I do want to focus on the stocks with earnings reports first, if I have time to look at stocks today before the FOMC announcement. All right, so again, I have my own cloud notes in Bookmap, so I can show the NDX levels, key NDX levels, acting as support and resistance, as well as the QQQ levels. There's the 0 gamma level and the 470 absolute gamma strike. And the session volume profile, note all of the volume concentrated around that 470 level. All right, let's wrap up our positional analysis by taking a look at gamma notional to see how market makers were positioned on the gamma curve at the beginning of the day. This is the data table at the bottom of the AM Founders Note, Spotgamma AM Founders Note, showing gamma notional, market makers' position on the gamma curve at the beginning of the day for the SP 500 and the NASDAQ. Note all these numbers are negative, and they're more negative than yesterday. For an index, this indicates Spotgamma assumes that traders are long puts, market makers are short puts. Hence the negative gamma. They have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Let's just take a quick look at the Vanna model to get an indication of what that may mean. So far for the day, we know that the low for the day, well, let me explain this chart real quick. So this is showing market makers delta notional on the vertical axis, spot price for SPX on the horizontal axis. There are two curves on this chart. The gray curve shows how market makers delta notional may change with changes in price only. The purple curve adds implied volatility to the equation. That shows how market makers delta notional may change with changes in price and applied volatility. And that change in delta with a change in implied volatility is the Vanna effect. Vanna is the second order Greek. And that's the curve that we want to take a look at. So the low for the day was right around here, where I'm holding my cursor now, that line. And price has increased. Implied volatility dropped. Market makers can buy back short hedges. So a little bit of a put Vanna effect here. And this is always the case. I always take a look at this in a negative gamma environment. All right, so my thesis for the day, first of all, looking for higher volatility based on the very negative gamma notional, and then just based on the price action for today, especially pre-market. Let's take a look. Let's go back to the SP 500 and take a look at when this rally began. The rally began just after the market opened yesterday afternoon at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Very steady rally during the overnight Globack session, and then this rally during the cash session is just a small continuation. Here's the 9:30 cash open, just a small continuation of that rally that began overnight. All right, let me check for questions real quick. Hector asks, since SPX is trading above the volatility trigger, we should expect lower volatility normally. Remember, FOMC announcement is coming up, so I'm looking for higher volatility, just based on the news. Therefore, since it is generally the last major support above put wall, so I would say the last major support. If we have time, we'll take a look at the absolute gamma strike we'll see there's probably very strong support at 5,400. That has been the case, and 5,400, which is above the 5,300 put wall, has been very strong support. And generally, if price is trading above the volatility trigger, you do expect some accumulation to the upside. So yeah, that's you're about right there, Hector. So good, good understanding. So price trading above volatility trigger. If there's a positive reaction to the FOMC announcement and press conference, price could move higher. Certainly, gamma notional will become much less negative or even positive tomorrow, and that is when that is more of a risk-on environment. Study. You're welcome. Study definitely pays off. All right, hello Anurag, welcome. Anurag asks, if the gamma is negative, is that for market makers? Yes. Then I would think market makers have bought puts, right? No, that is, traders have bought puts, market makers sell puts, hence the negative gamma. They're positive theta, negative gamma. So market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. Traders are buying puts, that's the assumption, that's generally the case. And market makers have sold puts, so their position is negative gamma. All right, let's take a quick look. Let's move on now. Take a quick look at some setups for the S&P 500. I want to see what options traders have been doing today. We'll probably only have time for the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. Whoops. So let's go to now execution. This is the hero signal, hedging impact real-time options. So everything that we've looked at so far, other than Bookmap, is based on static data, updated once a day, sometime during the night. Now let's move on to execution, move on to real-time. We'll take a look and see what options traders have been doing today. And we'll start with the S&P 500. There are two signals that we can take a look at for the S&P 500. This is the first signal, the index signal. What this chart is showing is options trades and market maker hedging activity in real time for a combined signal of SPX, SPY, XSP, and ES Futures. So that's the index signal. There are two lines on this chart. The white line is showing price for SPX. The purple line is the hero signal. Again, showing options trades, market maker hedging activity in real time. A rising hero signal indicates traders are taking positive delta positions. They're buying calls and or selling puts. And a falling hero signal indicates they're taking negative delta positions. They're buying puts and or selling calls. So that's the first signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500. This is the second signal. This is the equity signal. So this chart is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. This is the second signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500. Typically, the index signal is more noisy and can often provide a leading indicator. And in the case today, this signal for the equities was definitely the one to look at. So it's if you're trading the equity indexes, this is definitely one decision that you have to make, looking at both of these signals if this is your approach to trading. All right, so this is what I was looking at today. So let's zoom in on this chart. Go to full screen. All right, so I've got about a minute to the FOMC announcement. And let's take a quick look at NASDAQ. So for the NASDAQ, there are two signals that we can take a look at. This is the index signal, showing price for NDX and options trades for NDX and QQQ. And then the MAG 7 signal is similar to the equity signal for the S&P 500 showing options trades, market maker hedging activity for all the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven. And this was definitely the signal to take a look at for the NASDAQ. All right, let's go back to the S&P 500, go back to Bookmap. I'm going to zoom in. All right, so the announcement is imminent. So we'll watch this for just a minute or two, and then we'll take a look and see what options traders are doing. All right, so as expected, the Fed funds rate is unchanged, still at 525 to 550. So now the algos are parsing the statement and certainly looking for any hints of a rate cut in September as the market expects. Usually there are several moves, 2 or 3 moves, big moves up and down before the final move. All right, let's go take a look and see what options traders are doing. Go back to Hero, go back to the equity signal. So right around 125, there was a large block order, institutional order, either selling calls or buying puts. Let's see, so they were both selling calls and buying puts. Let's jump back to the index signal. So that has been trending down since about 11:30. Go back to the equity signal. So far, the equity signal is pretty flat. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to open this in another tab so we don't have to keep zooming in. So I'm going to go to the, let's do this in order. So I'm going to go to the equity, the index signal here, still trending down. And then go to the equity signal here, zoom full screen. All right, so now I can just jump between the two. So the equity signal started to move up about 140. Still pretty flat right now. Back to the index signal. All right, still no significant clues here. Let's go back to Bookmap. Check NASDAQ. NASDAQ pulled back to VWAP. Also the NQ, 19,350 level. NASDAQ has been making a series of lower highs. Let's see if it can break that trend line. Back to the S&P 500. Notice how this algo pulled just about a minute before the announcement. This algo that's like a cloud of dust above and below the S&P 500 then came in just a few seconds after the announcement. All right, so the S&P 500 moving higher. You can see the green volume dots in Bookmap. Some aggressive buyers coming in. Noah says that's the quietest reaction I've seen in quite a while, not a lot of movement. So of course, the announcement is as expected, no change. Fed continues to say no cut until it has gained greater confidence. Inflation is moving toward 2%. Job gains have moderated. So no, I would expect potentially more reaction when the press conference begins. Inflation has eased but remains somewhat elevated. All right, so the S&P 500 back to the SPY 551 level that was acting as resistance since about noon. I'm going to tone down the heat map, going to tone down that cloud of dust, the tracking algorithm. All right, so 551 acting as resistance. Let's go back, see what options traders are doing. Not a lot. That's the index signal. Go to the equity signal. Still moving higher. Let's go check NASDAQ. So NASDAQ tried to break that trend line, but did find resistance at 470. All right, what does everyone want to do? Do you want to continue looking at the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, or take a look at some stocks? All right, Hector likes this live analysis. Let's take a quick look at some stocks. First of all, stocks that reported earnings. AMD. AMD rallied in the pre-market. This is going back from yesterday. Here's the reaction after the close yesterday. And then it looks like AMD is giving up a lot of that gain. You just sometimes, especially with stocks, you can't pay attention to the news. Let's see what options traders have been doing in AMD. I'm going to open up one more. Make sure we're on the last. Open up one more instance of Hero here. Go to AMD. I'm going to shift to puts and calls. Initially, traders were buying calls in the morning, shown by the rising orange line. When traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock. Call buyers quickly took their foot off the gas, and AMD has been grinding lower. Large block orders selling calls. So far, AMD continues to move lower. So that's AMD. Let's take a look at Microsoft, which also reported earnings. Zoom in. So far today, traders are selling strangles on Microsoft. They are selling calls and selling puts. Hero signal was a little bit difficult to read this morning. The key was to watch these levels, especially the 420 key gamma strike. Good entry point for shorts this morning, or target for a long. Let's go take a look at Microsoft. There's the 420 key gamma strike. Good entry points for short or target for a long. Looks like Microsoft trying to make its way back up to that 420 level. Let's take a look at Meta, which reports earnings after the close today. Bullish day in Meta. Let's see what options traders have been doing. Pretty choppy Hero signal. Just like Microsoft, traders are selling puts, that's shown by the rising blue line, the positive notional value. They're also selling calls, that's shown by the negative notional value here. Pretty choppy action in the call line. Resistance at the 475 hedge wall. $475 hedge wall acting as resistance. Hero signal for these stocks today, I think, has been a little bit more difficult to read than the index signals. All right, and then AF, let's take a look at Google. I don't have Goog, I have Google. Trending down today. Not quite sure what this was. Large volume dot. All right, let's go back to the, we'll take a look at the Hero signal for Google and then get back to the indexes. So I've got Google. So not really a lot to see here. Traders net for the day, selling puts, selling calls. All right, let's go back to the S&P 500. We're on the index signal here. Let's go to the equity signal. Still grinding up after this move right before the announcement. Let's zoom out. Let's take a look at the setup this morning. This is the signal to take a look at. Traders were taking positive delta positions, primarily in the large cap tech stocks, driving price higher. Great pullback entry right around 945. And that was again to the 54.95 volatility trigger. Flow alert gets your attention, signaling significant options activity. Let's shift to total, go Mag 7. And you can see very similar hero signal for the Mag 7. There's the pullback entry, 945. Traders buying calls, selling puts, primarily buying calls. In the Mag 7 stocks, that's shown by the rising orange line. Driving price higher today until they took their foot off the gas right around 1045. Let's go. All right, check the equity signal. Let's go back to the SP 500. All right, so again, finding a resistance at 551. Check NASDAQ. Trying to break above that trend line, but finding resistance at 470. Note the point of control has moved up to that level. That's shown by this purple line right here. Has moved up to actually the just below 470 at the NQ 19,450 level. So it looks like the algos did not find enough in the statement to really move the indexes. Now waiting on the announcement. Let's take a look at a couple of other stocks. So NVIDIA rallied today, I think in sympathy with AMD, but has continued to move higher, whereas AMD reversed lower. So one knock against Microsoft was all the increased CapEx, capital expenditures for AI, and of course AMD and NVIDIA, maybe especially, are beneficiaries of that capital expenditure. AMD was down, NVIDIA was down pretty sharply today and now recovering pretty nicely. Let's see what options traders have been doing in NVIDIA. We'll go back to the last hero chart, go to NVIDIA. Traders have been buying calls in NVIDIA. Shown by the rising orange line, traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock to hedge the delta exposure. Flow alert, get your attention, signals significant options activity. And note how price follows pretty much the slope of the hero signal. So up until about 10:10, pretty strong. Options trade slow down. Then around 11:30, they finally take the foot off the gas, and NVIDIA starts to consolidate. Go back to Bookmap. So NVIDIA chopping up and down around 115. Cumulative volume delta has been rising, and that's shown by the dark blue line in the subchart. The other line in the subchart is the market pulse price change indicator, and the extremes are often good entry points, deeper pullback entry points for long. And this one right here lining up with a deeper pullback for long up to 116. The heat map in Bookmap is showing a history of the limit orders. These are limit sell orders above price that come in just after the open, often act as a magnet for price. Let's go back and check the S&P 500. Trying to break above 551 now. NASDAQ also trying to break above that trend line on 470. Go back and check. S&P 500. Oops. We'll go to the, whoops. Got my signals mixed up here. Go to the index signal. So really the only thing you can see about the index signal is that it has slightly moving up. Stop moving down, slightly moving up. Go to the equity signal. Still continues to move higher as price is moving higher. So the equity signal still can equities still continue to be the key driver of price. Options trades in the equities today still continue to be the key driver. All right, any questions? Anyone have any other stocks they want to take a look at? So it looks like the S&P 500 is still struggling to get above 551. Let's check Tesla. It was moving this morning. Let's see what options traders are doing in Tesla. In Tesla, note 235 is the call wall. Traders were aggressively buying calls, and as price approached the 235 call wall, they took the foot off the gas. And so far, Tesla continues to trade below that level. They were also selling puts. And about the same time, they started buying puts. So just after 10 a.m., they stopped buying calls, started selling calls, stopped selling puts, start buying puts. Price moved lower and is now consolidating with both the call line and the put line moving pretty neutral. Let's go take a look at Bookmap. Take a look at Tesla. There's the 235 call wall. Price did not quite make it up to that level. Note the high liquidity at that level. Options traders took their foot off the gas before price reached that level. So they're aggressively buying calls and selling puts. Started selling calls and buying puts. Took their foot off the gas, now price consolidating. Let's go back and check the S&P 500. And W. Black says, thanks, Doug, looking soft. You're welcome. S&P 500 still trying to break above the 551 level. NASDAQ looks like it has broken that trend line now. Doing a better job of breaking above the 470 absolute gamma strike. Let's check Hero for Mag 7. Go back to the total signal. Go to the index signal. Back to the Mag 7 signal. So still more clarity, I think, from the Mag 7 signal today. Index signal starting to grind lower. Go to the SP equity signal, still grinding higher. Nope. A little bit of a move down. So the press conference begins in 3 minutes. I'll hold on for a couple of minutes after the press conference begins, and then I'll have to wrap it up. And by the way, for those of you who are in YouTube, please take a look at the link for the Discord, Bookmap Discord. You can post comments, questions in the Options Doug chat channel, as well as a number of other channels. And what you can also watch the presentation in Discord as well. All right, so everyone in YouTube, you're welcome to join us in Discord. All right, let's go back to Bookmap. Whoops, here we go. All right, so both the index and equity signal is now starting to move lower. Let's go back to the S&P 500. So the S&P 500, as both the index and equity signal turns lower, starting to look a little weak, maybe now struggling to break above the 551 level. Press conference begins in about a minute. Check NASDAQ. All right, NASDAQ doing a better job breaking above the 470 level. Looking at the Mag 7 signal. Still moving slightly higher. All right, so I've got 2:30 now, so the press conference theoretically is beginning now. I don't see Powell speaking on CNBC yet. All right, the press conference begins. Again, I'll go for a couple of minutes here. Then I'll have to wrap it up. All right, now the S&P 500 responding. So it looks like NASDAQ is leading today. NASDAQ started to move higher. Oh, at least 10 minutes higher, moved higher before the S&P 500. Above that resistance line. Powell says labor market has come into better balance. Unemployment rate remains low. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to let you give your full attention to trading now. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you on Friday. Thanks again. Bye.